Their last message was a whisper, "We die alone," but the void had been listening. The stars above Darien 6 had long since gone silent. Once a thriving outpost on the edge of Coalition space, the colony now floated like a broken tooth. In the mouth of a predator, the skies were veiled in ash and iron storms, a side effect of orbital bombardments that never quite finished the job. Scorched domes, ruined spires, air recyclers choking on dust, and beneath it all, remnants of humanity, hiding like embers in a dead fire. Among them walked Ava Roslin, a systems engineer turned survivalist. She had been 27 when the raw Dominion tore through the rim worlds like fire through wheat, now 32. Ava's eyes held the weariness of 10 wars, though she had never once fired a weapon. Her hands built shelters, networks, filtration lines. She saved what could be saved, and when nothing could be, she memorized names. The child clinging to her coat was one of them, John, barely 7. He didn't cry anymore. None of them did. "Keep the mask on," she said softly as the acrid wind swept down the broken corridor. John nodded, hollow-eyed. They moved silently through what remained a port echo, once a vibrant landing zone. Now its towers leaned like dying trees, blackened and skeletal. Human bones decorated the walls, not from neglect, but warning. The raw didn't kill efficiently. They killed poetically. Ava ducked through a blast-scoured doorway and descended into the old command sublevel. There, buried beneath 6 meters of ferrocrete, was her sanctuary, the Echo Core, a cobbled-together command post running on salvaged parts and dying fusion cells. She passed a rusted hull plate from an old defense frigate, the name barely legible, SS Valiant Dawn. Inside, the others stirred. Rourke, the last militia captain, leaned over a broken comm array. Eli Voss, scarred and missing his right arm, ran diagnostics on their remaining power grid. 16 humans in total, 16 survivors. That was all that remained of the original 22,000 colonists. "We caught a spike," Rourke said as she entered. Ava froze. From the relay, deep band signal, repeating. "It's weak, but it's ours, old Terran codec." Voss isolated the pattern. The grizzled technician grunted, then hit playback. The speaker crackled, hissed. Then a garbled voice. "Darien 6 request confirmed. Hold position, ETA. 13 cycles." Silence. Then again, as if through a cosmic heartbeat. "Help is coming." No one spoke. The air felt electric, unreal. Ava's fingers tightened against the cold metal wall. "That signal is impossible," she whispered. "No warships flown under Terran flag in 5 years." Earth fell silent. The coalition disbanded. The fleet was destroyed. Rourke finished, his voice grim. "I was there. Carthage Drift. We lost everything." "Then who's answering now?" she asked. They all looked at each other. Ellie's voice was hoarse. "If it's real, if they heard us, then someone out there remembers." That night, Ava climbed the comm tower herself. What was left of it? She wrapped her coat tight and stared into the black. The void loomed, vast and uncaring. Somewhere out there was Earth, or what remained of it. Somewhere. Someone had heard their message, sent years ago through decaying satellites and fractured relays. A cry in the dark. She activated the beacon one more time. "This is Ava Roslin of Darien 6. We are still here. We are bleeding. But we are not gone. If you're coming, hurry." Static. And then, for just a heartbeat, something flickered in the stars. A glimmer, gone in an instant. Her breath caught. Was it just a reflection off orbital debris? Or had something shifted out there? Something massive, something moving. She descended. Heart pounding. Below, in the core, John was asleep curled against a heater coil, clutching an old Earth patch flag. The signal looped again on the console. Hold position 13 cycles. Ava stared at it, and a thought cut through her doubt like a blade through fog. What if they're real? What if we're not forgotten? And what if, out in the cold, something else had heard the signal too? Behind her, Rourke slowly turned his head. His weathered face had gone pale. "Roslin," he said. She followed his eyes. The long-range sensor, blind for years, just blinked green. Contact, unidentified mass. High-velocity entry, heading straight for Darien 6. We thought the stars had gone deaf. Turns out, they were just deciding who to answer. The contact moved like a ghost through the void. No IFF ping, no coalition registry, no calm hail. Just a silent, accelerating presence, inbound from deep space with terrifying precision. "Speed?" Ava asked. her breath visible in the frigid air of the core. Eli tapped the dying interface. .01C, that's above military strikecraft specs, but it's not a drop pod. It's something else. Something coming to finish what the Rawl started, Rourke muttered, reaching for the old plasma rifle hung on the wall. Its charged cell long dead. They had no weapons, no shields, no fleet, not even hope, and yet, Ava stared at that blinking contact like it was a falling star meant for them alone. "Wake everyone," she said. "Seal the doors. Ours." Past intense silence, the contact neared orbital range. The colony's ancient orbital defense grid, more memorial than mechanism, never even stirred. The Rawl had shattered those first. But this wasn't the Rawl. Not yet. Not exactly. Then, as the tremor of atmospheric entry shook the dust from broken rafters, Ava climbed once more to the roof of Port Echo's tower. And there she saw it, descending through flame and thunder. Not a warship, not a drop pod, but something older, scarred, massive. Its angular frame bore marks of a long-forgotten fleet, deep. Terran military steel, black with reactor, burn and war paint. Fins long retracted, cannons silent. A relic, but alive. The whole red, TSS Nightwind Fleet Ghost Class Titanbreaker Registry, obsolete, decommissioned, destroyed at Carthage Drift. Ava's throat dried. Her legs shook. That ship was supposed to be gone, and then the wind came. The warship passed low overhead like a blade tearing the sky in two. Sonic waves split buildings. Dust spiraled. Lights across Echo Core flickered. Children screamed. Elders wept. The ship didn't land. It didn't need to. Instead, it spoke. A voice, raw, analog, deep as gravity itself, thundered through every working speaker across Darien 6. Darien 6, this is Captain Idris Harlan. Nightwind acknowledges your distress call. Evac underway. Eli fell to his knees. Rourke whispered a curse so reverent it might have been a prayer. Ava just stared skyward, blinking away disbelief. But then, a second signal echoed through the void. Not from Nightwind. It screeched like tearing bone, digital and violent. A wave of interference rolled through every console, blinding the core systems. "They're jamming us," Voss shouted. The sensors flared to life again, and this time, there were 3 new contacts. Smaller than Nightwind, faster, weapons hot, Rawl interceptors. They had heard the signal, too. Ava gritted her teeth as the first red streak scorched the atmosphere above. Nightwind banked hard, launching countermeasures like stars exploding. "She drew them here," Rourke said. "They'll bring a whole siege fleet." "No," Ava said, cold and resolute. "We called them," Nightwind just answered. The colony shook as debris rained down. One of the interceptors smashed into a ridge west of the calm tower, carving a molten scar into the mountainside. Nightwind rose to meet them in orbit. Her cannons, quiet for nearly a decade, roared like ancient thunder. Plasma tracers lit the black, carving a burning trail across the clouds. One Rawl fighter spiraled out of control, trailing fire like a dying comet. In the core, Eli screamed as sparks burst from the wall-mounted relay. "Our reactor shot. We can't keep shielding the comms. If the Rawl jam us, Nightwind can't lock evac," Ava shouted. Outside, the wind howled like a beast. Survivors clustered underground, listening to death unfold above. Ava grabbed a data core, yanked out its power conduit, and slammed it into the Ooplink's fusion ring. "Rosalind, you'll fry the buffer. I don't care. Give them eyes on our position. They came for us. I'm not letting them leave blind." Eli cursed, then helped. Static, surge, pulse, then clarity. Nightwind's voice returned. Signal locked. Visual acquired. Preparing extraction run. Rourke exhaled like he'd been drowning, but Ava turned slowly toward the north wall. The secondary sensors had just lit up again. More Rawl signals. Too many. They're not stopping. She whispered. That wasn't the spear. It was the tip. Flashback. The room was gold-lit. Earth's sun filtering through the water-rich sky of a world now gone. Ava knelt beside her sister, Lily, fingers brushing dark curls. "Someday," Lily said, "someone will hear us, even if it takes 100 years. Why would they care?" Ava asked, voice bitter from ration dust and lies. Lily smiled. "Because we care. That's what makes us different. We remember." Back in the core, Ava turned to Rourke. "Nightwind's not enough. She's all we have," he said. Ava's jaw tightened. "That we give her a reason to fight." She stepped toward the console, activated every dormant satellite protocol. and linked it to the final orbital mirror, cracked but still orbiting. "What the hell are you doing?" Voss asked. Ava stared into the screen. "I'm making sure the Rawl know this world isn't finished." And above them, in the void, the real war had just begun. The Rawl came for silence. What they got was a scream across the stars. The orbital mirror array hadn't moved in 7 years, its stabilizers frozen, optics fractured by solar debris. But Ava Roslin wasn't asking it to see, she was asking it to burn below the surface. The survivors of Darien 6 braced in the core's central chamber as the sky lit up with fire. On the main screen, a camera feed trembled and cleared. Night Wind, battered but blazing, was locked in a deadly ballet. With 2 remaining Rawl interceptors, she moved like a predator awakened, older, slower, but not forgotten, and not alone. "Is the mirror vector aligned?" Ava asked, sweat pouring down her temple as the Ooplink groaned under redirected. "Power, closest we'll get without a pilot up there in person," Eli shouted back, which, by the way, would be suicide. Ava didn't flinch. "I'm not sending it blind," she said. "Give me the Ooplink helm. I'll guide it." "You can't fly that thing." "I'm not flying it. I'm aiming it." The orbital mirror was never meant as a weapon. It was a solar collector, meant to gather and redirect stellar energy for power conversion. But in wartime, in desperation, it could become a lance from heaven. Rourke approached her, gaze sharp. "If this works, the Rawl know exactly where we are. They already do," Ava said. "Let's remind them what we are." She slid into the old interface, fingers dancing across cracked haptics. The screen flickered, then pulsed to life. The mirror's main feed showed jagged stars and a narrow silhouette. One of the Rawl interceptors looping for another strike. On Night Wind's underside. "Come on," she whispered. "Come on. Come on." Above Darien 6 Night Wind's hull was bleeding atmosphere, gouged by plasma fire. One dorsal cannon lay in twisted ruin, but her engines roared defiantly, and from her bridge, Captain Idris Harlan stared into the chaos, his knuckles white on the rail. He had seen this before. Carthage Drift, the last stand of Earth's fleet, but this time, something was different. Human voices, real, living voices, rising over his comms. He listened. "Ooplink align. Solar convergence at 89%. Fire sequence on your mark." For Darien 6, his eyes lit up. "Roslin," he said aloud, as though speaking to a ghost. "You magnificent stubborn thing." He keyed in tight beam confirmation. "Fire at will." Plan inside Ava locked her jaw. "Execute." The Ooplink pulse soared into orbit. The mirror snapped into alignment, and the sky erupted. A beam of focused stellar fire, thin as a needle, bright as a newborn sun, lanced downward from the cracked mirror array. It struck the lead Rawl ship mid-dive. The interceptor's energy shields failed instantly. The hull shattered, split, then detonated in a blossom of molten metal and violet flame. Night Wind banked away just as debris scattered across the stratosphere. Below, a thunderous cheer rose from the core. Fists pounded metal. Tears streamed down weathered cheeks for the first time in years. The people of Darien 6 had seen an enemy fall because of them. John hugged Ava's leg, trembling. "Did we win?" he asked, voice small. She crouched, pulling him close. "No," she said gently. "We fought back." Later that night, Night Wind's voice returned. "Orbital zone cleared. Limited evac begins at dawn. Prioritize non-combatants." The survivors gathered by the shattered towers, staring up at the night sky as the warship descended like a judgment. Ava stood apart, watching silently. Rourke joined her, arms crossed. "You realize what this means, don't you?" he said. "We painted a target," Ava replied. He nodded grimly. "A big one." She inhaled the ash-laced air. "Let them come." He studied her, then reached into his coat and handed her something wrapped in synth cloth, old, scorched, but unmistakable. "A Terran fleet badge. I pulled this off a captain at Carthage," he said. "Didn't think it would ever mean anything again." Now, Ava unwrapped it and read the inscription, "We are the last, so we will not fall." Elsewhere, deep space far beyond Darien's orbit, in the silent cradle of a Rawl command carrier, alien eyes fixed on the feed. The lead strategist, a towering figure of bone-white armor and living circuitry, clicked in displeasure. "Human vessel identified. Designation, Night Wind. Terran Ghost." Another voice responded from shadows. They were supposed to be extinct. They remembered how to fight, the commander said coldly. He turned toward the central sphere, where a dozen more red pings began to appear. More signals. More calls. The fire was spreading. Prepare siege fleet. Purge protocol authorized. Darien 6. Final scene that night. Eva stood on the scorched ridge above the colony. Below, fires burned low, kept intentionally alight. She activated the comm uplink again, not to call for help, but to send a warning. This is Ava Roslin. Darien 6 stands. The Raw came to erase us. They failed. If you're out there, hiding, scattered, forgotten, listen. The Void is watching. But now, so are we. She paused, then added, one warship came back. That's all it took. Above her, Nightwind hovered in low orbit, her hull glowing with scars and purpose. Hope had a name again, and across the stars others were listening. They thought we were noise in the dark. Then they heard the rhythm of defiance. The sky over Darien 6 didn't return to peace. 2 days after the Nightwind's arrival, the clouds burned again, not from solar fire, but from the Rawls. Retaliation, the siege fleet came without ceremony, 6 cruisers, 24 strikers, and a carrier ship the size of a city, the Virix Thal, black as obsidian, veined with red plasma channels that pulsed like a beating heart. It eclipsed the sun, casting the colony into premature dusk. The first bombardments were precise. No wasted fire, no messages, just destruction. They hit the North Ridge, obliterating the aquifers and the last hydroponic farm. A second strike vaporized the relay that Ava and Eli had reactivated, the mirror array, already drained, fragmented into spinning slag. And yet, Nightwind didn't leave. She rose above the ruins like a sentinel, braving the hellstorm, buying time. Inside the core, the walls shook with each orbital pulse. Children were moved to deep shelters. Emergency lighting flickered. Ava gripped the edge of the main table as a tremor buckled the floor beneath her. They're toying with us, Eli growled. They could have glassed us already. No, Ava said, staring at the red arcs on the screen. They want us to see. They want to remind us who rules the stars. Rourke, blood on his collar from digging survivors out of a collapsed stairwell, slammed a fist into the bulkhead. Let me take a squad to Nightwind. We can coordinate a drop. Board one of their ground skiffs. No skiffs to board, Eli said. They're not landing. This is purification. Ava turned to the projection again. The Virix Thal hung there, silent, watching, waiting. We need to speak to them, she said quietly. Rourke stared at her like she'd lost her mind. Speak to the Raw. If this is war, let it be one they understand, she said. We've shown we can fight. Now we show that we remember. We don't kneel. We don't beg. We warn. Flashback 10 years ago, Earth's final broadcast before the fall of Coalition Command. Ava was a junior tech in the communication corps, huddled in a storm-battered Terran outpost. The skies bled static, the oceans rose, and cities crumbled. In silence, but from orbit, the last message was transmitted. We are humanity. You may break our systems, our networks, our lines, but we are not made of circuits. We are made of memory, and we remember everything. Now with Nightwind's transmitter array patched and sensed, Ava stepped into the ship for the first time. Her boots echoed through a dead corridor lit only by red emergency lights. Ghosts of the past seemed to linger in every bulkhead. Captain Harlan met her at the bridge, standing beside a tactical schematic patched together with fragments of ancient Terran data. You want a broadcast? He asked, watching her to them. Ava nodded. I want them to hear us. He studied her for a long time, then stepped aside and activated the command channel. An old console unfolded from the deck. Its edge was etched with the words, Speak, that the stars may remember. Ava inhaled. This is Ava Roslin, civilian of Darien 6, engineer, survivor, human. We know who you are, the Raw, the dominion that erased the narrated, that shattered the Arcant halls, that cracked Earth's skies and left our worlds burning. You expected us to vanish, to go quiet, but you forgot the one thing we never lose, each other. You are not the first empire to try and silence humanity. You will not be the last we bury. Silence followed. The signal was sent on wideband, untranslated. Let the Raw decipher it. Let them try. They didn't respond with words. Instead, they fired a kinetic slug, fast, invisible, devastating. Nightwind's hull screamed as the impact tore through her lower decks. The starboard hangar collapsed. Fires broke containment. Ava hit the floor, blood at her temple. Evacuate the civilians now. Harlan roared, sealed breach points, but Ava, staggering to her feet, saw something else on the sensor array. A transmission, but not raw. A signal, weak, ancient, buried. Rosalind, Darien, human call detected, coordinates, maps lost, Terran grid. Validating, Rourke, helping drag the wounded to shelter, froze as he heard the pulse. Wait, is that? Eli confirmed. It's a Terran signal, not from Nightwind. It's coming from beneath us. Later down in the crust of Darien 6, deep below forgotten mining routes and quake-buried labs, Ava and a recon team uncovered a sealed bunker lined in pre-Exodus alloy. Its beacon had just reactivated. Inside, racks of data cores, stasis tech, and something stranger, a project labeled Mnemonic Core, Human Echo. Eli scanned one terminal, wide-eyed. This was a fallback vault. Memory backup of Terran history, culture, language, military records. It's the seed. Ava stared at it, her breath shallow. They left this, in case we lost everything. She whispered, a story strong enough to start again, as the Raw fleet gathered in orbit. Preparing for the final purge, Ava laid a trembling hand on the console. Then we don't just survive, she said. We remind the galaxy what it forgot. They wanted to erase us from history. Instead, they unearthed our beginning. The vault beneath Darien 6 was older than the colony itself. Its alloy plating was stamped with Terran sigils unseen since the Exodus era, back when Earth was choking under black skies and humanity flung its last children to the stars. But this vault wasn't just history, it was memory, weaponized. Ava stood beside Eli, eyes locked on the central interface. Streams of golden text poured across the screen, archive after archive of cultural code, tactical models, even full neural echo maps of Terran war doctrine. This is more than a backup, Eli whispered. This is a resurrection protocol. She stared at the header, Mnemonic Core, ECH-09 purpose, memory consolidation for galactic rebirth. Status, locked, awaiting human authorization. Can we activate it? Ava asked. Eli hesitated. We can, but it won't be quiet. This thing wasn't made to survive. It was made to ignite. If we turn it on now, every listening ear across this sector will hear it. It'll scream the name of humanity across every raw sensor. Ava looked up at the reinforced ceiling, as if seeing beyond it, to the ships waiting in orbit, watching, listening. Then we screamed loud enough to wake the ghosts. Above, Nightwind limped through low orbit, her reactor core flickering like a dying sun. Captain Harlan leaned against a scorch rail on the bridge, watching as the Virextal adjusted position, slowly, deliberately, aligning for planetary annihilation. They were done toying. Captain, his comms officer said, voice breaking. They're charging a singularity pulse. Harlan closed his eyes. Time, 3 hours, max. His fingers curled around the console. One ship, one wounded relic, no reinforcements, no fleet, and yet, he turned toward the main holo display, watching the surface, watching her, Ava Roslin. She wasn't surrendering, and that meant he wouldn't either. Vault Core, Darien 6, the console trembled. The vault lights flared gold. Authorization sequence engaged. Ava keyed in the final command and spoke aloud. By the memory of Earth, by the blood of the broken, by the promise we carry, I awaken the echo. The vault pulsed once, like a heart restarting. Then the signal rose, not just a data stream, not just tech, a wave, quantum, mnemonic, encoded in Terran frequencies. It leapt into the stars, bypassing jammers, scrambling sensors, crashing into every spectrum of the raw network. It was not a weapon of mass destruction. It was a weapon of mass remembrance, and it hurt them. Raw command, Virextal, the strategist shrieked as data flooded the command bridge. Thousands of Terran signatures, extinct languages, extinct names, extinct faces, all blasting into its neural arrays. Its AI subsystems writhed. What is this? Came the broadcast. Scream. How do the dead speak? And deep within the swarm code of the Raw's hive systems, a terrible realization began to unfold. They had never truly erased humanity. They had only scattered its pieces. And now the pieces were waking up. The choice hours later, Ava stood before the surviving colony leaders, surrounded by wounded, by children, by those who had already given everything. There's no safe path now, she said. The Raw won't allow us to live. But we've triggered something ancient. And there's one thing the mnemonic core still contains. She turned to the display. Nightwind's core codes. Captain, Harlan had once been part of Project Echo. His ship had been seeded with dormant Echo signatures meant to align with this vault. A key and a lock, now reunited. We can transfer the entire core into Nightwind's AI, Eli said. Merge the data with her command protocols. She'll become more than a warship. Rourke leaned forward. She'll become the last memory of Earth. A moving archive. A message wrapped in steel and flame. But there was a cost. The vault's energy would surge. The transfer would overload Darien 6's crustal plates. The colony wouldn't survive the quake. We'd have to evacuate everyone we can. The rest. Eli didn't finish. Eva looked across the room. John stood beside the heater coil, watching. Her with those silent eyes, the Terran flag still in his arms. She met Harlan later that night aboard Nightwind, silence stretching between them as systems hummed to life. You don't have to do this, she said. Yes, I do, he replied, because if we run without it, we stay forgotten. But if we rise with it, they'll remember, she said. He smiled faintly. No, they'll learn. The evacuation Nightwind descended once more. One final time, her damaged hull. Open. Cargo bays turned refugee ships. Her hangars became cradles for memory, for the future. Ava helped load every child, every injured, every data core. But she stayed behind. So did Eli. So did Rourke. And the rest of the core's original engineers. The ones who knew that sometimes, to carry the flame forward, someone must hold the match to the pyre. As Nightwind rose, engines screaming, the ground beneath the vault trembled, and Ava, standing beneath the collapsing sky, whispered, "Let them come. Let them burn everything. We gave the galaxy something they can never kill. When the stars fall silent, it's not death you should fear, it's the memory that follows." The crust of Darien 6 broke at dawn. Vault Echo 9 collapsed inward, swallowing half of Port Echo's ruins and tearing open ancient fault lines that hadn't shifted in centuries. Fire and ash spewed into the air like Earth's old legends, the kind Ava Roslin had read as a child and never truly believed. Above, Nightwind rose alone. Her hull still bore the scars of 1,000 battles. Her engines pulsed unevenly, but her core was no longer just nuclear fire and steel. It was history incarnate. The mnemonic core had fused with the ship's neural web. Where once there had been only Captain Idris Harlan's voice and memory, now there echoed 1,000 more voices from old Earth, from Terran High Command, from lost colonies and buried alliances. Nightwind was no longer a warship. She was a monument armed with vengeance. Bridge of Nightwind Harlan stood at the helm, his hands trembling as the data poured through him. The ship's voice, once his alone, was now deeper, layered. Chorus of forgotten ancestors. Tactical overlay complete. Raw fleet. 27 confirmed ships. Primary target, Virix. Estimated survival rate, 3.4%. Recommended course, proceed anyway. He chuckled bitterly. That sounds about right. Across the bridge, former colonists turned crew braced themselves. Eli was there, patching systems with scavenged parts. A child, John, now orphaned, twice over, sat in a jump seat beside him, watching everything in wide-eyed silence. He held Ava's patch in his hands, planetfall aftermath on the surface. Nothing remained of the vault, only a molten scar glowing from beneath. Rourke's last transmission had been corrupted by static, but a single line had survived the burst. We lit the fire. Now carry it farther. Captain Harlan stood at the viewport, jaw height. He gave the order. Set course for the Virix. The nav officer flinched. Sir, if we approach, they'll destroy us. Yes, but not before we show them what they tried to bury. He turned toward the holopanel and activated the final message encoded within the mnemonic core. Transmission. Galactic wideband. Emergency override. Ava's voice played across the stars. Her image, grainy but proud, dirt-smudged and standing beneath a fractured sky, filled every monitor, every ship, every listening ear across the raw dominion and beyond. This is Ava Roslin of Darien 6. The world they burned is gone, but we remain, and we are not a whisper anymore. We are thunder, carrying memory, fire, and the names of those you tried to erase. You came to kill the last of us. Instead, you woke the first. Orbit. The enemy moves. The raw fleet closed in. Their fighters spread like claws around Nightwind. The Virix charged a singularity cannon meant to hollow a moon, but something was happening. A surge of data flooded raw channels. Not interference, but ancient Terran code, embedding itself into enemy systems, songs, maps. Stories, faces, the very essence of humanity, seated into their neural architecture like wrought in polished bone. The Virextal's command AI spasmed, overwhelmed. The strategist shrieked, "They are not soldiers. They are remnants. They are poison. Kill them now." Aboard Nightwind, Harlan turned to Eli. "We ready the core. You sure? This'll overcharge the main drive. She won't survive." "We weren't meant to," the captain said. "She was meant to be remembered." Eli stared, then nodded. They brought John to the escape module. The child resisted. "I want to stay," he said quietly. "For her." Harlan knelt beside him. "You already did. You carried her name. Now you'll carry it farther." He pinned Ava's patch to John's chest. "Go, and tell them everything." Final preparations, the overdrive reactor began to hum. The stars around Nightwind seemed to bend. Inside, Terran voices echoed louder now. Some crying, some singing, all united. The last ship of Earth aimed its bow straight at the Virextal. Eli turned one last time to the captain. "You know this is madness, right?" Harlan smiled. "It's human." Meanwhile, the galaxy listens out in forgotten sectors, in fractured colonies and silent bunkers. Ava Roslin's message continued to play. Old Terran transmitters blinked online. Hidden cells in the shadows of other empires stirred. Names of fallen worlds whispered again through lips long sealed. Something was happening. The Rawl hadn't just triggered a relic. They triggered a reckoning. Final scene. Pre-climax, the Rawl opened fire. Nightwind did not flinch. Her hull peeled. Her decks trembled. But she held, and then she charged, engine screaming. History burning. Memory roaring. Captain Harlan's last order echoed across the bridge. "Let the galaxy remember who we were." A dead world sent one. Voice into the void. The galaxy thought it was a whisper. It was a war cry. They said no ship could breach the shield walls of the Virextal. They were right. No ordinary ship could. But Nightwind was no longer ordinary. She was Earth's final breath, forged into steel and ignited by memory, as the singularity cannon of the Rawl carrier reached full charge. Nightwind streaked through the void like a comet laced with rage, her hull fracturing under gravitational strain, her drives pushing beyond survivable limits. On her bridge, Captain Idris Harlan stood with hands clasped behind his back, watching the behemoth grow closer on the screen. There were no more evasive maneuvers, no tricks, no backup plan, just a single, impossible truth. "We were never meant to win," he whispered, only to be remembered, and in her core, the mnemonic engine burned. Aboard the Virextal, the Rawl strategist pulsed with fury. Its command AI spasmed again as the Terran archive continued to flood its systems, overwhelming logic with feeling, replacing directives with memories. A million fragments of humanity bled into its hive mind. The scream of a mother in a burning city, the laughter of children under synthetic starlight. The last song played as Earth fell silent. The words, "We will not vanish," it roared, attempting to purge the contamination. But it was too late, because Nightwind was coming. The collision Nightwind's main cannon, the one that hadn't fired in 17 years, surged to life. The mnemonic core rerouted its final power reserves, overclocking plasma conduits far beyond safe thresholds. "Target lock," Eli called. "Main battery charging. Brace for memory discharge. Fire," Harlan said, voice calm as stone. The blast wasn't just energy. It was history turned into light. The beam ripped through the Virextal's forward deflector like a blade through paper, shattering energy walls that had never known failure. Then came the ship herself. Nightwind rammed the Rawl carrier at full burn, her prow tearing into the Thal's command segment. Steel tore, light ruptured, and for a moment, time itself held its breath. Flashback, Ava Roslin, her voice echoed again across the final seconds. "If we fall, then let the stars carry our names. Let our dust become warnings. Let them know we were here, and we fought." Inside, the Thal explosions ripped through the core decks. Fire consumed command centers. The Rawl screamed in fractured harmony as their neural array overloaded. The memory virus finished what the plasma could not. The idea of humanity, the stubbornness, the grief, the undying will, became an infection they could not compute. And then, silence, escape pod, moments before John floated in darkness, strapped into a cryo seat, orbiting high above the battlefield. The pod tumbled, its viewplate cracked but intact. He watched as Nightwind and the Thal vanished together. In a chain reaction detonation, a second sun blooming in the vacuum of space. No screams, No Warkries, just fire and the echo of something greater than stillness. John reached into his coat and pulled out the Terran patch. Ava's name was stitched into it. He pressed it to the glass. I saw. He whispered, "Oh, remember, across the galaxy the signal didn't stop, even in death." Nightwind's mnemonic core broadcasted. It reached broken colonies and ancient relays. It activated dormant satellites seeded by Earth centuries ago. It echoed through forgotten Terran embassies buried in alien soil. A million souls, thought extinct, heard it and remembered who they were. Old rebel fleets powered back online. Human. Refugees raised the patchwork flag. Some cried, some armed themselves. But none of them stayed silent. Final debris field a week later. Rourke's encrypted pod was found by a scavenger vessel near the edge of an unclaimed system. Inside, his final log. "We didn't make it out, but Nightwind did what we were meant to," she reminded the galaxy. "That humans don't fade, we burn. If you're reading this, then the war is still going, and you're not alone." John's pod, re-entry guided by ancient emergency protocols. John's escape pod streaked through the atmosphere of a hidden Terran safe world. As the hatch opened, figures emerged from the trees, humans, real ones, old uniforms, older eyes. They looked at the child, then at the patch. Silence fell. Then the elder among them spoke. "He carries the last fire. They broke our worlds, but not our memory, and now the stars carry our name." 2 years after the fall of the Virix Thal, the war changed. The Raw Dominion, once relentless in its cold extermination, began to retreat, not from defeat, from remembrance. Across the spiral arms, old Terran frequencies awakened like ember threads rekindling into fire. Mnemonic core fragments, encoded in refugee minds and encrypted vaults, began to activate in scattered systems. Not weapons, not fleets, stories. Ava Roslin's voice became legend, a signal caught in solar winds, carried by pirate bands and encrypted into the hull of rogue frigates. Children on fringe worlds learned her speech before their own birth names, and wherever her voice reached, something stirred. Humans rose. New Terra, formerly Safe World 9 Zeta, it was a world seeded, long ago for fallback, never meant to be more than emergency soil. But in the wake of Darian's sacrifice, it became something else, a cradle. Survivors gathered, not just from Darien 6, but from shattered colonies, outlaw stations, orbital archavens, and among them walked a boy with a stitch patch over his heart. John, he never spoke much, but when he did, people listened, because he had seen. And when he turned 16, he took a name that was never his, not by blood, but by fire. "My name," he told the gathered in the square of New Terra's rising capital, "is John Roslin." Above New Terra, year to post-Darien, a new vessel rose from Drydic, not as large as Nightwind, not as armed, but that wasn't the point. Its bow bore her name, etched in the ancient tongue, in our S. Roslin's echo. She was not built for conquest. She was built to carry memory, a moving archive, an interstellar lighthouse, broadcasting the full Terran mnemonic core to any system, willing to listen. Inside her core, pieces of Nightwind's remains, salvaged from the debris belt near Darian's orbit. In her AI, a rebuilt fragment of Captain Harlan's voice, recovered from the final pulse. And in her heart, John Roslin's resolve. Transmission, year 3PD, the Roslin's echo hovered at the edge of a contested system. Once enslaved by the Raw, their ships approached, smaller, fractured, no longer the invincible tide they once were. John stood on the bridge, staring into the void. He didn't flinch. He transmitted, "We are not soldiers. We are not ghosts. We are memory, living, burning, loud. You tried to silence us. Instead, we became the song that never ends. This system is no longer yours. It belongs to its people, and we remember who they are. The Raw turned away." Galaxy-wide, year 5 PD, the Dominion began to fracture, not because of warheads, because of words. Entire subfleets broke protocol, overwhelmed by mnemonic contamination. Raw synthetic minds designed for logic could not bear the burden of Terran grief, art, or sacrifice. They called it the virus. It wasn't. It was humanity, not in ships, but in truths. Empires fell, not to battles, but to belief. And elsewhere in a vault beneath the cold moon, orbiting a nameless gas giant, a forgotten AI flickered on. It played a fragment. They thought no help was coming. Then a human warship came roaring from the void. Final scene, John Roslin, Age 23, he stood at the edge of a canyon on Lyra 7, watching as another outpost powered up its mnemonic beacon. The sky was clear, the stars familiar. Rourke's name was etched in the foundation stone, Ellie's too, and Ava's. He reached into his coat, pulled out the old patch, frayed now, but still bearing her initials. He pressed it to the beacons. "Core, we remember," he said. "We remember all of it." Behind him, a child asked, "Is it true that a single ship saved the world?" John turned, and the stars lit his eyes. "No," he said. "She saved the story." Epilogue. Unknown location in the deep void, far beyond charted maps, a pulse is received. A Terran symbol awakens in alien ruins. A figure, not human, not raw, listens to the message. Then, in a voice like broken stone, it repeats, "Now, the stars carry their name. Human, remembered, the end."